We humans are wired to love and be loved. ये हम communicate नहीं करते. जिस बंदे के साथ आप हो, does that person makes you feel aligned, helps you grow in life, understands you and your goals. My job is to help a person understand their own mental narrative.
फर्स्ट मीटिंग में बोलते हैं मुझे बंदा चाहिए जिसके पास मैन बन हो, जो ऐसा हाइट का हो और जो ऐसा दिखे. और सीमा आंटी 70% तक हो पाएगा, इससे ज्यादा तो हो पाएगा.
यही तो प्रॉब्लम है. लोगों को लगता है कि ये वर्कआउट नहीं किया जा सकता. एंड रिलेशनशिप में लव फैक्टर नाम की चीज नहीं होती है. आपको आपका सेंस यूज करना होता है. मेंटल हेल्थ इज एन एवरीडे जॉब. अ रिलेशनशिप हैज टू बी एफर्टलेस. खुद से चलते हैं, खुद से कुछ नहीं चलता. यू हैव टू वर्क. Entire Kabir Singh is red flag. That's a myth, and I really want to say, what the hell?
Thank you so much for your amazing response on our previous episode by Dr. Jushia and Dr. Ankur Sareen. आज का एपिसोड मेरा फेवरेट है एंड आई बेट हम सबको इसकी ज़रूरत है. रिलेशनशिप एडवाइस एंड हाउ टू रॉक एट रिलेशनशिप्स. If you think you always fall for the wrong guy or the wrong girl, then this episode is definitely for you. हमने सब कुछ डिस्कस किया, from complex relationships like friends with benefits, fear of rejection, infidelity, loss of intimacy, toxicity, and a lot of other problems that today's generation face. Meet Ekta Dikshit, psychologist and a relationship coach. इन्होंने thousands of लोगों को अपनी लाइफ में हैप्पीनेस दी है by rocking at their relationship. Watch the complete video and do let me know in the comment section कि ये पॉडकास्ट आपको भी उतना ही यूजफुल लगा जितना मुझे लगा. Welcome to this podcast, Ekta.
Thank you.
So excited that you are here. So to begin with, Ekta, I really want to understand, what is this? Who is a relationship coach?
Suppose if you have a lot of wealth and if you're not emotionally well, or maybe you're not doing physically okay, you won't sum it up like you have a very good life. You'd be like, oh, there's something missing. कुछ तो है, ठीक है, that needs to be worked out. Maybe emotional health का हो या चाहे physical health का हो या चाहे overall एक mental health का हो. So they all are intertwined with each other and people don't realize that आपकी बहुत सारी जो physical health issues होती है वो कहीं ना कहीं emotional health से शुरू होती है. Because your mental health issues, your emotional health issues, they begin at a very cellular level because the toxins that we have of negative thought patterns of how we live our life, how we emotionally feel, what goes right here is what goes right here. And people tend to overlook that. And I think that's what our job as a relationship coach comes into a play, where you are navigating people to have more healthy relationships, to help them have fulfilled life. क्योंकि अगर हम देखें तो हमारी लाइफ का अगर हम ग्राफ देखें या रिसर्च देखें, स्टडीज देखें, तो a lot of our life comprises of relationships.
Absolutely.
If we are not doing good at relationship front, चाहे वो कलीग्स के साथ हो, चाहे वो पार्टनर्स के साथ हो, चाहे वो आपके बच्चों के साथ हो, चाहे वो आपके माँ बाप के साथ हो, किसी के भी साथ अगर आपकी रिलेशनशिप में कहीं खटास होती है, सो यू नो इट सॉर्ट ऑफ अफेक्ट्स योर ओवरऑल बीइंग. And I think for us as a relationship coach, we try and help people have more fulfilled relationship so that they know and they can navigate, they can help themselves not fall into the trap of toxic relationships or relationships that are not going to help them grow in life. Because कई बार हम ऐसे relations में घुस जाते हैं जहाँ पे हमें लगता है सही है, but later we realize the damage that it's done to us.
I'm going to hold that thought. I think very beautiful word, fulfilled relationship. I'll come back to that. But first एक I want to understand, ये बचपन में होता है कि engineer बन जाऊँ, doctor बन जाऊँ, बड़े होके क्या बनूंगी, relationship coach बन जाऊँ, ये हुआ कैसे? Like what is the backstory of Ekta the relationship coach?
So ये शुरू तो नहीं हुआ था from that perspective that I wanted to be a relationship coach. But yeah, ये शुरू हुआ था जब me as a teenager, I wanted to be an air hostess. Then I wanted to be an actor. Then I wanted to be an RJ. So there are a lot of things, you know, वो teenage में से होता है ना कि ये भी करना है, ये भी करना है, ये भी करना है. But later I think as I was growing, I realized मैं आस पास के लोगों को जब भी I had that empathy in me of listening to people, of understanding their issues, of what exactly is going through in them. And I would just give them certain suggestions or maybe just hear them out. And I realized that I do have certain traits and I do have this inquisitiveness about why people do what they do. वो एक हमेशा से एक चाह थी टू अंडरस्टैंड कि लोग ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हैं, लोगों के सर्टन बिहेवियर्स क्यों हैं ऐसे. एंड दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ गॉट मी इनटू psychology. And this was one of the reasons why I got into psychology, to understand why people do what they do, understand what are the thought patterns that goes behind every single behavior, to understand about all the turbulence that people experience in their life. And it was and I always had that zeal to understand psychology behind people's thought patterns and their behavior.
Wonderful. So let's just hope कि आज हम आपसे सीखे thought patterns के बारे में, and also सीखे कि how can one really change to be better and really do well in their relationships, right? So let's pick a friendship. I think friendship is something, whether you are teenager, young, or married or whatever, right? Like it's a space where a lot of relationships are built, right? What are the red flags in the friendship zone?
बहुत सारे red flags हैं friendship में. Especially teenagers need to understand this. First of all is to understand whether they are breaking your boundaries. जैसे आपने कोई चीज़ communicate करी हुई है, they're still breaking it. Second, they're mocking you in front of other people. That despite of knowing that there are few things that triggers you. Now, for example, if I know what triggers you, there are certain words or my certain behavior, or suppose as simple as मेरे बोलने की पिच भी अगर आपको ट्रिगर करती है, तो आई हैव टू बी माइंडफुल इफ आई वैल्यू दिस रिलेशनशिप और दिस फ्रेंडशिप. अगर मैं ये फ्रेंडशिप वैल्यू करती हूँ तो आई विल इंश्योर दैट आई डोंट डू थिंग्स दैट ट्रिगर्स यू. देन सेकेंड, यूजिंग यू एज अ स्केप गोट. कि स्पेशली हम टीनेजर्स में बहुत देखते हैं, यू नो, दे यूज यू एज अ स्केप गोट कि अच्छा ये चीज़ हुई तुम्हारे वजह से. कभी भी हम लाइफ में कोई चॉइसेस करते, जैसे हमें हॉलीडे जाना है, now there's a set of friends who say कि अच्छा you know let's go to Greece for a holiday, but you wanted to go to Paris. अब ग्रीस में आपको मज़ा नहीं आया, there are certain issues that you've experienced transportation में या कहीं पे या कुछ,
blame कर दो,
तब blame कर दोगे कि I told you I wanted to go to Paris, but what did we do? We went to Greece just because of you. तो आपने सामने वाले को scapegoat बना दिया.
आपके पास जो लोग आते हैं, क्या ये ज़्यादा टीनेजर्स है, क्या ये ज़्यादा मैरिड कपल विद मैरिड इश्यूज है, मतलब व्हाट इज़ योर क्लाइंट बेस?
इफ़ यू सी, तो पहले की जब बात थी तब टीनेजर्स काफ़ी आते थे. Of course, because they do have a lot of issues to deal with. See, teenagers are going through a lot of transformation.
And I'll say not just teenagers, right? I think anyone who's in their 20s.
Teenagers मतलब that comprises from say 15 to मतलब हम 20 तक ले, 20 के बाद especially in their 20s also till the time they're figuring out their career.
मतलब उसमें career है,
relationships है,
so much.
Because there is something called hustle culture and they feel कि उनको वो cover up करना ही है. They have to be a part of a hustle culture. उन्हें लगता है कि I have to be 24/7 productive to be a part of the cult. ये हमने cult बना दिया है कि अच्छा you have to be productive, you have to do this thing. अब teenagers को लेने जाए ना हम, तो एक तो already they are facing a lot of peer pressure and issues with their peers. ठीक है, अगर मेरी friend ने मुझसे बात नहीं की आज, and I'm wondering that why, what's wrong, did I do something wrong? इसमें कैसे हो जाता है कि अगर मेरी self esteem low है या मेरा self worth low है, then I'll question myself that maybe मैंने कुछ गलत कहा होगा जिसकी वजह से she is not talking to me. Or if there's someone who's so self-centric, वो बोलेगा कि यार इसका तो हमेशा का ड्रामा है, chuck it, I'm not gonna give, भाव नहीं दूंगी मैं. तो क्या हो जाएगा, वहाँ पे फ्रेंडशिप ब्रेक हो गई. तो ये जो छोटी छोटी चीज़ें हैं टीनेज में या जो आप अर्ली एडल्टहुड में, दे स्टार्ट अफेक्टिंग यू. ओनली व्हेन यू एंटर 30 you stop giving damn. It's like now I don't give a damn. Do what you want.
Yeah, but एकता, if you remember सोनू की टिट्टू की स्वीटी, right? स्पेशली जब फ्रेंडशिप होती है और साथ में वो रिलेशनशिप भी आ जाता है ना, तब कॉम्प्लिकेशंस आती है कि अब मुझे मेरे पास एक संडे है, मैं मेरी फ्रेंड के साथ स्पेंड करूँ या मेरी गर्लफ्रेंड के साथ स्पेंड करूँ, राइट? एंड हाउ द टू रिलेशनशिप्स engage with each other. So how do you define these boundaries?
सो हमने अभी जस्ट स्केपगोट बनने की बात करी थी, तो ये स्केपगोट इसमें भी आ जाता है। कई बार कैसे होता है कि अगर जैसे मूवी में भी बहुत ब्यूटीफुली डिफाइंड है कि कहीं ना कहीं जो बीच में होता है ना वो बकरा बन जाता है, बिकॉज उसको फ्रेंड को भी फोकस करना है और गर्लफ्रेंड जो बनी हुई है उसको भी फोकस करना है। सो हमारे टीनेजर्स एट एनी पॉइंट इन आवर लाइफ वी डू सेल इन सच टू बोथ्स काइंड ऑफ थिंग। तो ऐसे टाइम पे ज़रूरी है बैलेंस करना। और आप बैलेंस कैसे करोगे? टू अंडरस्टैंड कि क्योंकि आप नए रिलेशनशिप में घुसे हो तो उसे टाइम वक्त देना ज़रूरी है, बट एट द सेम टाइम यू बीइंग अ फ्रेंड, अगर आप फ्रेंड हो तो एज अ फ्रेंड इवन यू आर सपोज टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कोई इंसान, जैसे मेरा दोस्त अभी जस्ट एक रिलेशनशिप में एंटर हुआ है, विच मीन्स it's natural for all of us to be more inclined towards this new blooming relationship because you're still knowing this person.
And not hold that against
Exactly.
him or
And
her.
इस movie में तो of course the female here, the she's more like the antagonist if I'm not wrong. And बट हम रियल लाइफ देखें, बिकॉज इट्स अ मूवी आफ्टर ऑल, बट हम रियल लाइफ देखें तो इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट माई फ्रेंड राइट नाउ हैज़ जस्ट गॉटन इन टू अ रिलेशनशिप विच मीन्स दैट पर्सन विल नॉट गिव मी एज मच टाइम एज ही और शी वॉज गिविंग मी। ये एक नेचुरल है। सबसे पहले क्या होता है रिलेशनशिप में जाते हैं, हाँ तो मुझे भूल गया, मतलब अब
Such a typical dialogue.
या सच अ टिपिकल डायलॉग कि अब तो तुझे दोस्त की ज़रूरत है नहीं, अब तो तुझे गर्लफ्रेंड मिल गई या तुझे आज तो बॉयफ्रेंड मिल गया। तो ये खुद की समझदारी होती है, समझना कि we've just gotten into a relationship, which means let's just give time to that person, but also at the same time you communicate कि अच्छा listen, I know that you've gotten into a relationship right now, I know you ये जो weighing scale में वहाँ पे ज़्यादा weigh होने वाला है, but also at the same time learn to balance it out, give me also time, communicate करना ज़रूरी है। हम क्या करते पता है बहुत बार, जैसे हमने अभी जस्ट बात की, हम communicate नहीं करते।
एंड आई थिंक सारा प्रेशर स्केपगोट ले लेता है जो बकरा है बीच में।
Yes. And when this bakra in the middle thinks कि अच्छा मुझे फोकस तो गर्लफ्रेंड पे करना ही है क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं मुझे उसके साथ लाइफ बितानी है। फ्रेंडशिप इज इम्पोर्टेंट, आई एम नॉट सेइंग there's no comparison between a partner or a friend.
डू यू थिंक कि लोग कमिटमेंट करने से डर रहे हैं?
Absolutely. लोग बहुत ज़्यादा स्कैर्ड है एंड ये एक it's basically, let me tell you, this is one of the trending dating trends. It's called benching.
Benching, new term.
New term.
Okay, explain me,
So this
what is it?
benching means there is someone better out there. ये एक थॉट पैटर्न होती है ना, तो अगर मैं किसी के साथ रिलेशनशिप में भी हूँ तो भी at the back of my mind I'm thinking there's someone better out there, and which is why
I love the word benching.
yeah.
मैं रिसेंटली एक नया वर्ड सुना, सिचुएशनशिप।
Oh, it's not a new word.
Okay, for me it is.
But then I'm going to talk to you about a lot of terms in that case. But
सिचुएशनशिप क्या होता है, मुझे समझाइए।
situationship यही होता है कि जैसे हम कहते हैं ना कि go with the flow वाला scene, कि you fallen for somebody but the person is not sure about this relationship. They're like, let's just go with the flow, let's see what happens. But let me tell you, this go with the flow is such a scam. It's a scam. क्योंकि ये go with the flow के scam में एक इंसान रिलेशन बहुत ज़्यादा इमोशनल हो जाता है, whereas दूसरा is still sailing. और ये जो go with the flow बोलता है, वो इंसान अब तक उसने इमोशंस कैच नहीं किए आपके लिए, पर जो दूसरा इंसान है वो फंस जाता है बिकॉज वो इमोशनली इन्वॉल्व है। सो दिस इज सिचुएशनशिप वेयर यू आर नॉट इन अ रिलेशनशिप बट ये सिर्फ अभी सिचुएशन के लिए यू आर टुगेदर। बट आई विल नॉट से दैट सिचुएशनशिप इज बैड फॉर all the circumstances, because there are a lot of people they want to get into situationships, which means दोनों ही इंसान they know that this is just for the time being.
बट बॉलीवुड मूवी है तो एंड में प्यार हो ही जाएगा।
That's why I said that go with the flow वाला scene हम कहते हैं कि you know what, we know
but
that
then
this
you
is
don't,
situation.
it's a slippery slope. So I think my takeaway is friends with benefits, situationship, having that clear communication कि इमोशनल होना है नहीं होना है, क्या टाइम
इसके लिए
पीरियड है।
कम्युनिकेट करना जरूरी है कि लिसन, अगर आप सिचुएशनशिप में भी हो तो आप बात कर लो कि लिसन, आई थिंक आई एम ग्रेजुअली गेटिंग इमोशनल विथ यू, हाँ बात कर लो.
which could be a sign that you either need to get out or
और
commit.
ऐसे टाइम पे
whatever.
क्या हो जाता है पता है कि आप अज्यूम करना शुरू होते हो कि अगर मैंने कम्युनिकेट कर लिया देयर आर चांसेस द पर्सन विल बैक ऑफ. चांसेस आर कि जो अब ये सिचुएशनशिप भी है वो भी
चला
चली जाएगी. तो बहुत बार कहते हैं ना कि आई रियली लाइक माई फ्रेंड बट अगर मैं कम्युनिकेट कर लूंगा या कर लूंगी
तो झगड़ा हो जाएगा.
तो देयर आर चांसेस कि जो फ्रेंडशिप भी नहीं रहेगी. चांसेस आर कि ये भी टूट जाएगा. तो आई डोंट वांट टू रिस्क माई फ्रेंडशिप.
सो अगर आप जैसे आपने कहा कि ऐसे सिचुएशन में अटक जाओ जहाँ आप इमोशनली इन्वॉल्व हो बट आप कम्युनिकेट भी नहीं कर रहे हो क्योंकि आपको लग रहा है कि सब गड़बड़ हो जाएगी. अगर ये हैप्पी लोग हैं और ये अनहैप्पी लोग हैं तो आप अनहैप्पी के बकेट में घुस ही गए हो, है ना. तो I think the motive here, why we all are, sitting here and discussing is how to be in that happy bucket and not the unhappy bucket. Now let's move on to, अगर आप friendship में हो, how to not catch feeling.
सबसे पहले तो आपने ये बहुत प्यारी बात कही अबाउट हैप्पीनेस. सो आई वुड रियली लाइक टू पुट सम फोकस ऑन इट. देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड हैप्पीनेस पैराडॉक्स. हैप्पीनेस पैराडॉक्स ये कहता है कि हम इंडिविजुअल हमारी मेजॉरिटी ऑफ लाइफ इसमें बिता देते हैं सोच के कि आई वॉन्ट टू बी हैप्पी विद चेजिंग हैप्पीनेस. सो देर इज नो हार्म इन वॉन्टिंग टू बी हैप्पी. देर इज an issue in chasing it, in giving too much value to it. Suppose, for example, if right now talking to you, sipping coffee, having this fun chat is happiness.
Agree.
Because I am trying to find happiness in every little thing. So what happens?
Some amount of unhappiness is that masala that you need in life. नहीं तो life बहुत boring हो जाएगी.
हम क्या करते हैं पता है, हम लाइफ की बड़ी बड़ी इंसिडेंसेस में हैप्पीनेस ढूंढते हैं. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल माय पार्टनर गिविंग मी दिस बिग सरप्राइज टू मी, तो मैं खुश हो जाऊंगी. या फॉर एग्जांपल ग्रेजुएशन और दीज जो बिग इवेंट्स होते हैं हमारे लाइफ में, या शादी कहो, या हैविंग किड्स, ऑल ऑफ दीज आर बिग इंसिडेंसेस, लाइफ इवेंट्स. हम इस लाइफ इवेंट को हम हैप्पी कहते हैं. दिस इज लाइक फेस ऑफ हैप्पीनेस, राइट? But happiness, basically, you don't have to keep chasing happiness. You have to keep finding in little things. That's actually happiness. Giving too much value to happiness. जब आप बहुत वैल्यू देते हो कि मुझे खुश रहना है, खुश रहना है, खुश रहना है, तब खुश रहोगे ही नहीं. क्योंकि आप कॉन्स्टेंटली ढूंढ रहे हो एंड यू आर मिसिंग आउट ऑन दैट लिटिल ray of
The very
sunshine,
day. Yeah.
the very moment of right now. If I am thinking कि अच्छा मुझे ना खुश होना है, but if this little chat is not making me happy, then nothing will.
Wonderful. I'm going to definitely remember that. And
But-
one big takeaway for me today.
But yeah, coming back to your question, कि how do we be in friendship and not develop feelings? See, feelings are pretty natural. They come unannounced. तो वो आपको पूछेंगे नहीं कि अच्छा लिसन मुझे आना है. फीलिंग कब आती है? कि जब सामने वाला आपके लिए कुछ करता है जिसको आपने बहुत ज़्यादा वेटेज दिया हो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ someone has been giving me surprises, or maybe they're doing these little gestures of kindness, I start interpreting that as love and I start developing feelings. तो इसके लिए भी आपको कम्युनिकेट करना ज़रूरी है कि लिसन, आर यू डूइंग दैट आउट ऑफ लव और आर यू डूइंग दैट आउट ऑफ just care. Like care that you would care for your friend or anybody else. You would care for your sibling, you would care for random strangers. Because see, I know a lot of people who do this little gestures of kindness for everybody. तो फंस गए आप अगर आपने इंटरप्रिटेशन करना शुरू कर दिया उस चीज़ को.
एक time I'm going to jump back to benching because I loved it, the word, right? Let's say a person comes to you for relationship advice, right? And वो बंदी बोलती है, I'm going to say बंदी as an example because I'm a girl, कि मैं एक रिलेशनशिप से दूसरे रिलेशनशिप में जा रही हूँ बट कुछ कमिट नहीं हो रहा है. I'm not able to, my family really wants me to get married. I've reached that, unfortunately, that age pressure that we have here, especially in this country, कि भाई शादी करो, right? So that age pressure is there, but मुझे कोई मिल नहीं रहा है. And you, after listening to that story, realize that maybe the root reason why that person is moving from one relationship to the other is benching. What would be your advice?
I think more than advice, I would just make, because me as a therapist also, my job is to help a person understand their own mental narrative. Because a lot of times क्या होता है कि हमारे आसपास सिचुएशन में, लाइक सराउंडिंग में, वे वी सी सर्टेन सिचुएशंस जहाँ पे आई हैव सीन माई फ्रेंड constantly jumping from one to another only to find someone better in the end. So I start applying and associating with my life. But in this whole process, I might miss out on someone who's actually ideal for me. क्यों? क्योंकि I'm still searching out for someone better. Right? Abhi at this point, maybe I am with someone who understands me, gels with me well, who cares for me, who is pretty aligned with me. जैसे आप वर्क रोल्स में बोलो या आप पर्सनल ग्रोथ में बोलो, हर चीज़ में काफ़ी अलाइंड है मेरे साथ. बट अगर मैं उसको ओवरलुक कर रही हूँ यही सोच के कि लिसन आई डोंट वांट टू कमिट राइट नाउ बिकॉज व्हाट इफ समवनस बेटर आउट देयर, तो आई एम गोना मिस आउट ऑन समवन हु इज currently better, who understands. So in that case, I would just tell the person that how do you feel about this person? Okay? अगर आपको लग रहा है, कभी भी रेशियोज होने चाहिए. अगर आपको लग रहा है कि ये इंसान, प्रोज एंड कॉन्स होते हैं, ये जिस बंदे के साथ आप हो, does that person make you feel good, makes you feel aligned, helps you grow in life, understands you and your goals, cares for you, cares for your boundaries? These are little foundations that you take care of. If he really cares for your foundation, then I think it's important to understand कि there are few drawbacks. तो अब देखो, अगर drawbacks कम है और आपके pros बहुत ज़्यादा है, तो there is something, there's a loophole in my narrative.
And that sort of takes me to Seema Taparia. You know, as a person who watched that show, इतना मजा आया मुझे.
I am glad I haven't watched the entire thing. I've just watched like one episode.
You
and I was
should
like,
watch as a therapist because you get to understand कि लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, right?
Yes.
वो लोग उसे फर्स्ट मीटिंग में बोलते हैं मुझे बंदा चाहिए जिसके पास मैन बन हो, जो ऐसा हाइट का हो और जो ऐसा दिखे. और सीमा आंटी 70% तक हो पाएगा, उससे ज़्यादा तो हो पाएगा. बट एट द बैकग्राउंड द बिगेस्ट टेक अवे ऑफ दैट शो इज़ कि हम हमारी फाउंडेशन नहीं बनाते. इन द सेंस जो आपने बताया ना कि आइडेंटिफाइंग कि वॉट रियली यू वॉन्ट इन योर पार्टनर, राइट? दैट फाउंडेशन, आपकी वो कोर प्रॉपर्टीज़ क्या है. ही मस्ट रिस्पेक्ट. हाइट मुझे चलेगा, लंबा छोटा, बट मस्ट रिस्पेक्ट मी. एंड इट्स फनी हाउ दैट in that show people look at finding partners in a completely different way, right?
You know, when we talk about foundation, I'm so sorry to cut you here, but हम जब फाउंडेशन की बात करें तो बहुत बार ये भी होता है कि फाउंडेशंस हमारे सुपरफिशियल लेवल पे होते हैं. जैसे अपीयरेंस पे, अपीयरेंस इज ऑफ कोर्स इंपॉर्टेंट, आई एम नॉट सेइंग नो. फॉर यू knowing that what kind of appearance do you want in your partner is important. More than that, फाउंडेशन आपका इंटरनल होना चाहिए. जैसे एट्रीब्यूट्स एंड ट्रेट्स, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ ट्रेट्स एंड एट्रीब्यूट्स आर यू विलिंग टू हैव इट एंड आर यू विलिंग टू कॉम्प्रोमाइज. जैसे कोई इंसान बहुत हैंडसम हो, बट व्हाट इफ दैट पर्सन एथिकल नहीं है, ऑनेस्ट नहीं है, एंड देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड हेलो इफेक्ट, एंड दैट हैपन्स इन रिलेशनशिप्स. सो you meet someone who looks great. So halo effect is basically a bias, a cognitive bias in our head कि आप एक positive aspect of a person overlooks the overall aspect of a person, like an overall attribute of a person.
और उल्टा भी हो जाता है कि somebody who is not very attractive, and I think especially arranged marriage cases में आप फोटोज से डिसाइड कर लेते हो कि इसको मिलना है, इसको नहीं मिलना है, right? But when you really meet the person, you're like, this person is a great personality to talk to and engage with, and you have good conversations, versus you meet someone who's super handsome and
but don't have those ethics, or maybe who's not pretty aligned with you,
or you just plain don't have fun in that interaction, right? So Ekta, talking about appearance, आपके हिसाब से क्या चीज़ें मैटर करती है? बिकॉज आप इतने लोगों को मिलते हो, राइट? Let's say in a guy, what are the things that a girl today really looks for, appearance wise?
See, appearance wise, it's very subjective, to be very, very honest. I know there's someone who really likes guy who's of course fun loving, but अगर आप appearance की बात करें तो this person A who likes chubby guys, but the person B who likes lean sculpted guy. So it's very subjective, and I think this subjective ये जो एक preference है that comes from what I've seen during my growing years. If I've seen my father or men around me who are extremely handsome, who are sculpted, who look after their physical health, who are pretty much up with their appearance, then I will give more weightage to appearance as well. अब ये ना बहुत ज़्यादा subjective है. I'll tell you. अब if I've seen sculpted men around me, but if they are not good with their ethics, not honest, they're emotionally volatile, they don't respect boundaries of, say, my father does not respect my mother's boundaries, or maybe
Then I will break the rules.
then I'll break the rule and I'll be like, listen, appearance does not equate right characteristics.
Oh my God, it's amazing how
So which is why I said
biases and
it's
influences.
which is why I said it's so subjective.
So Ekta, in relationships, especially whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, situationship, whatever, right? Married. Tell us something about manipulation, right? Like look for those red flags and be wary of.
So there are a lot of red flags to be wary of. अगर हम देखें तो आज की तारीख में बहुत सारे टर्म्स है ये मैनिपुलेशन के. जैसे हमने सिचुएशनशिप की बात करी, हमने बेंचिंग की बात करी. There is a new term called vulturing.
Vulturing.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you know the behavior of a vulture, if there's a dead body lying, the vulture will take rounds and rounds and rounds till the time कोई आसपास ना हो, and then they'll start hunting or eating, right? Vulturing is similar in relationships. For example, अगर मैं देख रही हूँ कि किसी का रिलेशन अब टूटने वाला है, and if I like that person, I'm waiting for that person to break that relationship so that I can dive in. That's called vulturing. So that's also a kind of manipulation, because somewhere आप भी कहीं ना कहीं contribute करते हो उसको, बोल कर कि listen, that person is not right for you. You should understand. That person does not understand you, value you, is not aligned with you, does not really respect your foundations. I see a lot of men also in that case. The men get into relationship, they're waiting for this girl to break up with the guy, and then I'm like, oh, अब रास्ता clear है, so that I can dive in. That is vulturing.
And I think among your friends, among the people around you, पता लगाना कि कौन vulture है and उन्हें उनसे दूर रहना भी
And ये
जरूरी
फ्रेंडशिप
है.
मतलब ये ग्रुप्स में बहुत होते हैं. स्पेशली ग्रुप्स, एक अगर आपका सर्कल है जहाँ पे कभी कभार ना दो लोगों को एक साथ क्रश आ जाता है किसी पे.
हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल.
And now-
एक फ्रेंड जोन हो जाता है, एक
एक
dating.
फ्रेंड हो जाता है, एक पार्टनर बन जाता है. तो अब सपोजिटली उसमें से ब्रेकअप हो गया, एंड आई हैव सीन, I'll be honest, I've seen people okay breaking up with this person क्योंकि ये चला नहीं, okay let me just try with this person. I'm not saying there's harm in trying and understanding a person. You never know, शायद वो इंसान aligned नहीं था आपके लिए, maybe ये है. I'm not saying no, but if you get into this rut and this cycle, you're not going to get out of this loophole, this vicious cycle. The other manipulation that I see is called love bombing. I'm sure you must have heard about it.
No, I really needed this session.
Love bombing means someone who likes you. Now they've done everything to pursue you. हर चीज़ें करी आपके लिए, मतलब they've swayed you off your feet. Now that they have you, they start withdrawing a little bit. And when you confront that, कि अच्छा listen, I'm noticing पहले तो तुम ये सब किया करते थे, अब नहीं करते, then they come over, and when they see that you are withdrawing, they'll bombard you with thoda love to keep you hooked, and they go back again. And again, when you address the issue, they come back and they're... So what happens is you start being in a relationship with bare minimum things. If your self-worth, your self-love is low on the bar, तो आप लो की bare minimum से भी चलते चलोगे.
And I think it takes courage to leave a relationship and move on and take that decision that this is it. I'm not hanging in.
But more than courage, it's the self-worth and self-love. When you understand that, listen, I don't deserve this. I deserve more love. I deserve more care. I deserve A, B, C, whatever in the pecking order, your non-negotiables are. If you're on it, कि अच्छा मेरे ये non-negotiables है, I'm not willing to compromise on these things. And वो attributes होने चाहिए, traits होने चाहिए. That give priority to me. Understand? I'm not saying priority मतलब अच्छा काम छोड़ करके बैठ जाओ. No. But you have to understand sensible non-negotiables. So अगर क्या हो जाता है कि अगर I love myself, I know my worth, then I will not compromise on my non-negotiables. But if मेरा self worth ही low है, I'll be like अच्छा ठीक है ये you start settling for crumbs, and that's another term called breadcrumbing. When you start settling for the crumbs.
हमें probably description में एक dictionary बनानी पड़ेगी.
It's called relationship manipulations.
मैं समझ गई. एक one thing, right? I want to interrupt and ask you this. How do you really not fall in the trap of having a good relationship and saying कि ये तो love bomb हो रहा है, मैं निकलती हूँ?
ये किससे होगा? एक ही चीज़, अगर आप खुद को वैल्यू करते हो, if you understand what's your self-worth and where do you stand, if you know कि what exactly is your weightage in your life, तो आप ऐसे सारी चीज़ों में सेटल ही नहीं होगे. अब अगर मेरा सेल्फ वर्थ लो है तो मैं क्रम्स में भी सेटल हो जाऊंगी. मैं लव बॉम्ब होगा ना तो मुझे ऐसे लगे यार थोड़ा तो कर रहा है, ठीक है, सी ही इज गोइंग अवे,
नहीं मिलेगा, यही चलने दो.
एंड ये जो और तो नहीं मिलेगा वाला जो मेंटालिटी होता है, इस मेंटालिटी को बोलते हैं sunk cost fallacy. It's a fallacy, it's a faulty thought pattern. So it's called sunk cost fallacy, जो एक cognitive bias है. ये bias ये बताता है कि हम कई बार जब हम रिश्ते में इन्वेस्ट कर देते हैं, when you've invested a lot more, like invested your energy, your time, your resources in a relationship, you think let me continue despite of not yielding you results. क्योंकि आपको लगता है अब इतना तो टाइम और समय डाल दिया. एंड ये चीज़ हम बहुत सारे रिलेशंस, मैरिजेस में भी देखते हैं कि मैंने 10 साल दे दिए इस रिलेशनशिप में, सही चल नहीं रहा है, बट अब इतना समय दे दिया, अब वापस जा कर के क्या ही मतलब. नाउ एट दिस एज आई विल नॉट फाइंड समवन बेटर, और मे बी देयर आर चांसेस कि ये जो चल रहा है इससे और भी बुरा कोई मिल सकता है.
ऑपोजिट ऑफ बेंचिंग.
बट ये sunk cost fallacy एक आपकी फॉल्टी थॉट पैटर्न ही है, जहाँ पे आप ये सोचते हो कि नाउ इफ आई लीव दिस तो मेरा ये जो 10 साल का इन्वेस्टमेंट था ना ये वेस्ट हो जाएगा. तो व्हाट डू यू कंटिन्यू इन्वेस्टिंग,
चलने दो.
तो जैसे बिजनेसेस में भी होता है बहुत बार, पता है आप देखते हो कि बिजनेस में लॉस हो रहा है, देख रहे हो, पर आप अगर सोच रहे हो कि आई हैव ऑलरेडी इन्वेस्टेड सो मच टाइम, एनर्जी, मनी, रिसोर्सेज इनटू इट, अब ये यील्ड नहीं कर रहा है रिजल्ट, लेट मी जस्ट कीप.
छोड़ो, पोकर के राउंड में आप 4 राउंड खेल चुके हो.
I know because I have gone to this Goa. Yeah, I've been to this casino once, and last time I don't play casinos, but for once that I wanted to check, I think I can relate to that. आप एक बार डाल रहे हो तो आपको लगता है अब मैंने इतना टाइम और डाल दिया तो let me play a little bit more. You never know कि आपका लक फैक्टर कब चल जाए. एंड रिलेशनशिप में लक फैक्टर नाम की चीज़ नहीं होती है, आपको आपका सेंस यूज करना होता है to see
work
whether
towards it.
and work towards it. And lot of people think कि अच्छा अब हम एक दूसरे को इतने टाइम से जानते हैं, things have been good, let us get married, but not necessarily that things might work well after marriage as well, because if you are not pursuing each other, this is one of the most important tip that I would give people, that even if you're married or no matter what stage of your relationship or friendship or wherever you are, don't stop pursuing each other. आप pursue नहीं करते, आपको लगता है आज शादी हो गई ना, अब ठीक है, अब क्या करना है, अब it doesn't matter, that's fine.
Taken for granted.
Take him, her for granted, and then you stop giving much heed. तो ये हो जाता है. तो you don't have to stop pursuing each other, and when you value yourself, you stop settling for all these manipulations.
So एक तो one major takeaway जो मुझे समझ आ रहा है यहाँ कि self worth होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. And now that I'm on this side of the 30, आई नो कि जब तुम 20s में होते हो तो वो नहीं होता है. हाउ टू improve your self-worth.
Improve your self-worth. But more than self-worth, have to focus too much on, like, focus on yourself and know yourself in your 20s. I see a lot of, this is something I really want to address. I see today's generation, they're so busy with this instant gratification that we find on social media, that if I'm not feeling good, let me just scroll through, I'll start feeling better. But आप फोकस नहीं कर पा रहे हो, अच्छा मुझे पढ़ाई में ध्यान नहीं लग रहा है या काम में ध्यान नहीं लग रहा है, आई एम नॉट एबल टू वर्क राइट नाउ और बी प्रोडक्टिव एट माई वर्क स्पेस, लेट मी जस्ट स्क्रॉल थ्रू फॉर अ व्हाइल एंड देन मे बी आई विल गेट बैक टू वर्क. व्हाट हैपन्स, आपको वो इंस्टेंट ग्रेटिफिकेशन, वो इंस्टेंट डोपामीन हिट की इतनी आदत पड़ गई है कि आप लाइफ में अपने आप को समझ ही नहीं रहे हो. क्योंकि अगर मुझे सही नहीं लग रहा है, इफ इमोशनली आई एम फीलिंग लो राइट नाउ, समथिंग्स बॉदरिंग मी, instead of addressing that issue, what I do, I put it under the carpet. I'm not addressing it. I'm avoiding it. बहुत लोगों को ये भी उनकी ऐसी बिलीफ सिस्टम होती है कि प्रॉब्लम्स को अवॉइड कर दो, अपने आप सही हो जाती है. अपने आप सही नहीं होता. आप जब तक उसको एड्रेस नहीं करोगे तब तक सही नहीं होगा. इफ़ यू नॉट फीलिंग गुड, जर्नल, नो योर सेल्फ. आपको क्या चीज़ें अच्छी लगती है, what are the things that bothers you, what are the things, know about your non-negotiables.
Define your non-negotiables.
It's very important. अगर आप 20s में बैठ के आपका non-negotiables आप नहीं करोगे, ऐसा नहीं कि अच्छा I want a bun guy, a guy with a bun, I want someone who's very lean, who has a waist of 32 or 28. These are not really non-negotiables because these are fluctuating attributes. ये आज है कल नहीं है. But traits which are the core fundamental of an individual, उस पे फोकस करो कि अच्छा आई वॉन्ट पर्सन टू वैल्यू माई ओपिनियन, someone to understand me, someone who's aligned with me, who knows my goals, who understands that एक दूसरे की बाउंड्रीज को रिस्पेक्ट करना ज़रूरी है. ये छोटी छोटी ये एट्रीब्यूट्स, ये ट्रेट्स पे फोकस करो. फोकस ऑन दीज नॉन नेगोशिएबल्स. टुडे वी डोंट डिफाइन देम. Today's generation confused. And then you're confused, like अच्छा मैं पढ़ तो गए रिलेशन में, बट मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है कि शुड आई गो फॉर इट और नो. बट क्या आपने नॉन नेगोशिएबल्स आपकी डिफाइन करी? नहीं करी.
सो एक द वन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जो हर यंगस्टर फेस करता है इज करियर, रिलेशनशिप. कैन दे गो टुगेदर? क्या चॉइस करना पड़ता है? एंड बहुत बार लाइफ में ऐसी सिचुएशन आ जाती है कि यू हैव टू चूज वन ऑफ द टू.
यंगस्टर्स बहुत ज़्यादा है इसमें. टुडे दैट वी सी कि जो टीनेजर्स है, यंगस्टर्स है, बिकॉज दे गेट इनटू रिलेशनशिप क्वाइट अर्लियर देन आर टाइम्स. ओके, क्योंकि हम पहले की बात करें तो पीपल यूज टू स्टिल गिव मोर वेटेज टू करियर बिकॉज दे यूज टू बी लाइक कि लेट मी फोकस ऑन दिस राइट नाउ एंड देन ग्रेजुअली रिलेशनशिप विल हैपन. और मे बी otherwise what happens is today, you'll be surprised to hear this, that I see a lot of people, they keep relationship, even potential relationships, on hold because they're still figuring out their career. And it's not a question of either or. ये दोनों चीज़ें साथ चल सकती है depending how do you balance it out. अब अगर relationship नया नया है तो of course आप, because it's so hormonal that you tend to focus a lot more on relationships. You're daydreaming about your partner. You're so much, because it's rise of surge of oxytocin in you. Biological है, ये आप deny नहीं कर सकते हो. But let's understand one important factor through studies, through research. One thing that's been found is we humans are wired to love and be loved. So relationship is not a negotiable part. ये है, आप आज नहीं तो कल ये होने वाला है.
बट लेट्स से मेरी हमेशा से ड्रीम है कि मैं पेरिस जाके फ़ैशन पढूं, एग्जाम्पल. और मेरा बॉयफ्रेंड है, वो ऑस्ट्रेलिया जा रहा है. ठीक है, अब हम नेक्स्ट 2 महीने बाद 2 अलग टाइम जोन्स में जाने वाले हैं. व्हाट डू वी डू?
यही तो प्रॉब्लम है. लोगों को लगता है कि ये वर्कआउट नहीं किया जा सकता. आई हैव सीन, आई हैव हैड केसेस वेयर ऑफ लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस रिलेशनशिप्स वर्किंग एब्सोल्युटली ब्यूटिफुल, because A, they respect that there are it, ये एक तरीका है बताने का कि आई रियली रिस्पेक्ट योर गोल्स एंड सो डू यू, विच मीन्स हम अपने अपने करियर के एस्पेक्ट को परस्यू करते वक्त हम एक दूसरे को भी नज़र में रखेंगे.
एंड यू टेन टू ट्रस्ट इवन मोर बिकॉज आई नो कि आप दूसरी कंट्री में हो बट आई ट्रस्ट यू.
And I think that trust, there are vulnerable moments, there are vulnerable times, there are times when your trust might actually go haywire, or your emotions might actually be in complete doldrums, and it's natural for you to go through that. But in this whole process, even during the times of vulnerability, it's important for you to know that communication is the key. That listen, I am feeling like this right now. You tell me कि ये rational है या नहीं. जैसे for example, you didn't pick up my phone last night. You were all away, okay? And I saw your stories on Instagram. I'm giving you examples, okay, of examples of the cases where I saw your stories on Instagram, but you didn't pick up my phone. What's going on? So what happens? There's a little vulnerable moment that turns into big fight that can also make you blurt out and burst like a volcano, क्योंकि आपने अंदर अंदर इतना दबा दबा करके रखा है कि तब भी ऐसे किया था, 4 दिन पहले भी ऐसे किया था, लास्ट मंथ भी ऐसे किया था. सो यू नो व्हाट हैपेंस, आपने वो सारा कुछ जो सम अप करके रखा है वो सब आप एक साथ निकाल रहे हो. तो वो इंसान बोलता है अरे मैं कल रात को ही तो मैंने फ़ोन नहीं उठाया बिकॉज देयर वर लॉट ऑफ डिस्टर्बेंसेज एंड इट वाज जस्ट अ फ्रैक्शन ऑफ मोमेंट दैट आई पुट अप द स्टोरी एंड आई गॉट डन. But the other person on the other end is thinking something else. अब इसमें गलती दोनों की है, क्योंकि अगर आप on a receiving end, अगर आप एक communicate करके कह दो listen I'm here and I'll connect with you. So what happens, the other person is assured that ठीक है चलो, the person will get back to me. But also you at the sending end, तो आप भी समझ जाओ कि अच्छा if the person has communicated with me, let me hold on to it. Sometimes पता क्या होता है कि हम immediate reactions दे देते हैं instead of waiting or giving it some time. So learn to buy time. तो हम क्या कर देते हैं कि अगर आप different time zones में हो, long distance relationships can work beautifully depending upon you discuss it out, you communicate, you make sure that you make plans to do novel things together. हम पता अनफॉर्चुनेटली लोग नॉवल थिंग्स नहीं करते आज की तारीख में. अच्छा, हाउ अबाउट वी बोथ स्टेइंग इन डिफरेंट टाइम जोन्स इन डिफरेंट प्लेसेस, हाउ अबाउट स्टिल वी फाइंड अ मिड वे कि जहाँ पे हम एक वर्चुअल डेट पे जाएं और वी स्पेंड दिस वन टाइम वे वी नो कि अच्छा ये हम दोनों के लिए है. These are the few things to be communicated.
Rituals that sustain it.
But rituals also don't have to be monotonous. There has to be novelty. तो आप नॉवल चीज़ें करो एक दूसरे के साथ. समटाइम्स इवन एज सिंपल एज मे बी दिस माइट कॉस्ट यू सम मनी, बट सेंडिंग अ हैंड रिटन लेटर टू योर पार्टनर, लिटिल थिंग्स एज दिस कैन स्पाइस अप अ रिलेशनशिप. हम ये सारी चीज़ें ना बहुत ओवरलुक करते हैं एंड हमें लगता है अच्छा रिलेशनशिप इतना, वाई इज इट डाइंग, बट यू स्टॉप डूइंग दीज थिंग्स.
Moving to spice up, right? Ekta, what would be your tip, or rather what would you say on the importance of intimacy and all that goes around in the complexities around intimacy in a relationship?
Intimacy is way more important than we actually provide value to. हमें लगता है कि when I say intimacy could be as simple as even holding hands or maybe hugging your partner every day. It doesn't always have to be the act of sex whole as such, always. Intimacy is where you get close to the person. You are in the proximity of your partner. Okay. Now a lot of people think कि अच्छा relationship में है तो intimacy तो mandatory है, which means especially when we see this in teenagers, they're like, no, listen, you know what? If the person gets too close to you, which means the person just wants to get into your pants and that's it. ठीक है. Try to differentiate between, ये बहुत ज़रूरी है समझना, who wants to have a long-term relationship with you, who wants to just get into your pants, who wants to just be into situationship, who wants to be friends with benefits. Know these things. Only then you will understand the importance of intimacy, whether you want to get into it or no.
I think very well put it. There's no right or wrong. Knowing what you are doing
Absolutely.
with high
If you know,
self-worth.
if I know that I am friends with benefits with somebody, I know I'm like, it's my conscience right now that knows how to make decision. I'm not going to get emotionally attached to the person. I have to work on it. You know, a lot of people think अच्छा सोच लिया ना तो ये चलेगा जिंदगी भर. Mental health is an everyday job. Relationship is an everyday job. बहुत लोग, I see a lot of quotes doing the round that a relationship has to be effortless, खुद से चलते हैं, खुद से कुछ नहीं चलता. You have to work every single day. अब आपको लगता है कि अच्छा आपने आपके पार्टनर से शादी कर ली, अब आप सुबह उठ करके आप आपके पार्टनर को देखकर स्माइल भी नहीं करते हो बिकॉज यू थिंक अच्छा ठीक है ना, मतलब एफर्ट क्या डालना. इवन स्माइल इज एन एफर्ट फॉर अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल, और सेइंग गुड मॉर्निंग और मे बी हगिंग योर पार्टनर इज एन एफर्ट. बट आप ये चीज़ जब नहीं करते हो, दैट्स व्हेन योर रिलेशनशिप goes in doldrums.
And I think this entire subject becomes even more critical in the marriage situation because you are with one person, right? You are committed more than anything else, right? So how do you handle, and I'm sure आपके पास ये ऐसे cases भी बहुत आते होंगे जो divorce contemplate कर रहे हैं और सोच रहे क्या ये right है क्या ये नहीं. So if somebody is in that situation कि मैं क्या करूँ?
What exactly is the cause of divorce? So I'll tell you, there's a beautiful theory by Dr. Gottman. Now, Dr. Gottman is basically like father of lot of marriage theories, okay? And he says that anyone can predict divorce in a relationship in the initial phase itself. If the couple is doing 4 things. One is criticism. If there's too much of criticism in a relationship.
Wow,
ठीक
okay,
है?
this is super interesting.
So for example, जैसे अगर आपके इसमें कंस्ट्रक्टिव फीडबैक नाम की चीज़ नहीं है एंड देयर इज ओनली क्रिटिसिज्म इन अ रिलेशनशिप, आपको पता नहीं कि अगर आपको कोई चीज़ पसंद नहीं आ रही आपके पार्टनर में तो आप कम्युनिकेट करो, बट हाउ डू यू कम्युनिकेट डज
And
मैटर.
एक तरह sometimes it goes to that level that I don't like the music you hear, I don't like the Netflix show you watch, I don't like the clothes you wear.
And more than that, it's about communicating it in a constructive way that you know what, I would really like it अगर हम Netflix में ये शो देखना शुरू करें तो see, watch it, maybe you like it. Instead of focusing on what the person does that you don't like it, focus on what you would appreciate. तो आप क्या कर रहे हो, आप कहीं ना कहीं धीरे से वो इंस्टिल कर रहे हो, you're conditioning a person. But conditioning could be a manipulation.
हाँ मैं बोलने वाली थी conditioning manipulation.
बहुत ज़्यादा कंडीशनिंग हो गई, बट क्या हो जाता है, सी इट्स वेरी सब्जेक्टिव. लाइक आई सेड, कंडीशनिंग विथ हैविंग अ गोल इन योर हेड कि मुझे इसको चेंज करके ही रहना है. अगर आप वही सोच रहे हो कि आप कंडीशन उस पर्पस से कर रहे हो कि वो इंसान बदल जाए,
तो गलत है.
वो गलत है. आप सजेशन दो कि लिसन, I would really like it. How about you watch this show? Or how about you listen to this music? You will really like it. I like it. Maybe तुमको भी पसंद आ जाए. You never know.
I think the intention needs to be right कि we are here finding a mid ground.
Your tonality also. क्योंकि as per research, it's 78% of tonality does matter rather than the subject of the topic. So अगर मैं आपसे कहूँ कि listen, I don't like the t-shirt that you've worn. But यही चीज़ मैं बहुत रूडली चिल्ला करके या गंदे डेरिगेटरी वे में कहूँ तो यू विल नॉट लाइक इट. बट इफ आई से लिसन, हाउ अबाउट यू चेंज द कलर ऑफ द टी शर्ट, और मे बी हाउ अबाउट यू चेंज दिस, मे बी ये कलर तुम पे सूट करेगा, व्हाई डोंट यू ट्राई.
I get
It's
it.
just a way how you put things through. And I see a lot of couples when they get into this rut of criticism. क्योंकि देखो, criticism एक तरीके से जब एक तरफ से आ रही है, so the other person becomes defensive.
हाँ तूने भी किया.
हाँ, they start building walls. ठीक है, क्योंकि मुझे criticize किया गया है. Second is defensiveness. Right, where you start becoming too defensive about everything. अब आप बहुत ज़्यादा defensive हो जाते हो तो you are not willing to work towards the growth ना. क्योंकि अगर आप defensive हो जाते हो, which means अगर आपको कहा गया है कि listen, तुम हर चीज़ में चिढ़ते हो, पर ये तुमने अच्छे से कम्युनिकेट कर दिया कि लिसन, हाउ अबाउट यू वर्क अ लिटिल बिट मोर ऑन माइंडफुलनेस. हैव यू ट्राइड meditation. Have you tried this?
And the reply to that goes like sort of arguing कि मैं नहीं चिढ़ती.
मैं नहीं चिढ़ती.
So I'm glass too full
And
to
instead
even
yes.
change or learn or
Yes.
grow or improvise.
Yes, and that's what defensiveness does. More than that, even when you communicate, instead of focusing, there's a very beautiful thing that I tell everybody, that if you really want to communicate, learn to communicate with I statement and not you statements. Means, how about you change this in you? Instead say, जब ये चीज़ होती है ना मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लगता है, so I focused on myself. How do I feel? For example, कि if your partner is always late on a date, तुम हमेशा लेट आते हो डेट पे, तुम हमेशा ऐसे करते हो, तुम हमेशा मुझे वेट कराते हो. Instead, you say कि मुझे अच्छा लगेगा if you come early and we can spend more time together. There's a difference.
Absolutely
I'm focusing
different.
on myself. I'm focusing on how do I feel. That I feel good when you recognize my emotions.
And then it's not about blaming someone. आप किसी को then आप वो आर्ग्यूमेंट में नहीं जा रहे हो कि क्या फैक्ट है, क्या सही है, क्या गलत है. डजेंट मैटर क्या सही गलत है, मुझे कैसा फील हुआ, आप उस कॉन्वर्जेशन में जा रहे हो, which is very very important.
And what happens for a lot of times when you're criticizing someone, the other person by default, because हम humans by default defense mode में चले जाते, we start defending ourselves. कि अच्छा लिसन मैं तो ये नहीं कर रही, या अरे मैं लेट हुआ क्योंकि मुझे ट्रैफिक मिल गया, अरे इतना चिढ़ने का क्या जरूरत था. मतलब there's a way that how people put things through.
So criticism, defensiveness.
Third is contempt. Contempt is when again it's aligned with how you're putting things through. If you're contempting a person जहाँ पे आप criticize तो कर रहे हो, but आप एक इंसान के characteristics पे जा रहे हो अभी, which means that you are a loser, you are a failure, तुम ये नहीं करते, तुमने. So you start contempting a person, which means you started focusing on or using derogatory terms or using labels for the partner. Even that's one of a predictor of divorce. And the fourth is stonewalling.
Oh, what does that mean?
So stonewalling is where when you've said something to me, I didn't like it, I've started giving you, I've built walls around me, I've started giving you silent treatment. Yeah. अब क्या हो जाता है कि अब I've started giving you silent treatment. तो पहले हम एक दिन बात नहीं करते थे, ठीक है, इनिशियली जब झगड़ा होता था, क्योंकि आई यूज्ड टू गेट हर्ट. अब एक महीना स्टोन वॉल कर रहे एक दूसरे को, ये ग्रेजुअली बढ़ता है एंड यू बिकम सो हार्ड फ्रॉम विद इन दैट यू बिकम सावर इन अ रिलेशनशिप. सो क्या हो जाता है, इमोशंस दैट शुड कीप यू अलाइंड इन अ रिलेशनशिप वो चली गई अलग अलग. सो अपेरेंटली when you start stonewalling, that's the worst thing. Where instead of communicating, you start stonewalling. मतलब आप back off कर जाते हो.
I feel it's the stage where you've kind of given up.
You've given up that I think अब कोई मतलब ही नहीं है. But stonewalling, अगर आप give up भी कर रहे हो तो आप communicate करके give up करो. अच्छा listen, you know what, I don't think this is going to work out. So either we take a call or we be like friends or there's some kind of a boundary between us. But आप stonewall कर रहे हो जहाँ पे आप communicate ही नहीं कर रहे हो. So these are the 4 predictors of divorce. And these predictors will tell you अगर कोई relationship में ये constantly चल रहा है, not that these are irreversible. These are, you can work on them. Provided
so सबकी life में phases आते हैं where one of these 4 could occur and you work and you revive.
There are chances, there are phases, especially say for example अगर you've just given birth to a kid and you don't have time, or maybe you've not, तो क्या हो जाता है कि maybe your partner is constantly criticizing you, you're not giving me time, this that. आप defensive हो गए कि
phase है life का,
phase है, आप defensive हो गए कि listen we have a kid, I have to tend to the kid and blah blah blah. So यहाँ पे शुरू हो गया and because अब झगड़ा बढ़ रहा है आप स्टोन वॉल करना शुरू कर रहे हो एक दूसरे को. अब स्टोन वॉलिंग अभी इतनी ज़्यादा ग्रेव हो गई that you're like now there's no juice in a relationship. Which is why it's important to do novel things, which I supremely focus on.
I was just going to say, pack up and travel, which was my way of...
Yeah. So novel things बहुत अलग अलग, हर एक इंसान के लिए novel things अलग है. जैसे maybe trying a new cuisine together, going to a new restaurant together, or maybe suddenly starting a ritual of maybe चलो हम हर weekend हम tennis के लिए जाएंगे, something novel. आप टाइम स्पेंड भी कर रहे हो एंड यू डूइंग समथिंग नॉवेल ऑल्सो, एंड आपको लग रहा है कि विद टाइम इवन दैट इज गेटिंग मोनोटोनस,
Change it.
try something else. Maybe just go for some learning an instrument or doing something new together.
I think the 4 predictors is supremely useful because then you are being cautious, being aware of if you're falling in these traps, and instead of spiraling deep into it, आप revive करो, आप उस पे काम करो, उनसे बाहर निकलो.
These things are downward spiral. So unless and until you be aware, you recognize the pattern and you break it through.
Yeah, I think being aware, ये सब जो आज आपने सिखाया है हमें एकता, being aware of this fact कि कैसे आप you can be good at relationships and you can either identify कि ये toxic है मैं बाहर निकलूँ और आप right decisions ले सको, या फिर आप उन पे काम करके उन्हें heal करके be good at your relationships. I think all of this is super actionable, super useful. Just one last thing, Ekta. When I think of my friends, my family, there are certain people जो काफ़ी ज़्यादा naturally अच्छे हैं उनके relationships. मुझे पता है इससे कोई भी बंदा शादी करेगा वो खुश रहेगा. You know what I mean? That person has these things that you have been talking about, and there are few people जिनके फ्रेंड से भी झगड़ा हो गया, मुझे बुरा लग गया उसने ऐसे क्यों किया, मैं तो सेंसिटिव हूँ, मेरी सास से भी झगड़ा हो गया, मेरे कज़न से भी झगड़ा हो गया. सो हाउ डू, if unfortunately you are one of those who is not killing it at relationship, I would want to sort of you to summarize how to change, improvise and start moving to this side of the boundary and being good at relationships.
So जैसे आपने बहुत ब्यूटिफुली सम अप किया दैट देर आर सम पीपल हु आर innately good at relationships. They have these attributes of being empathetic, of being a giver, but a lot of times they are burning themselves to keep the other person warm. And this happens with a lot of them. I'm not saying everybody. There are some who are innately giving, who are innately good at handling people. And कई लोग ऐसे भी होते हैं कि जहाँ पे आप कितना भी कर लो, they're not so tolerable. They are very pesky. Someone who has a rigid mindset. अब क्या हो जाता है कि if you are on the latter part, कि जहाँ पे you are someone जिसका कुछ ना कुछ होता ही रहता है, तो आप खुद से पूछो, where am I lacking? Am I not really empathetic to understand, to step into other person's shoes? And कि अच्छा वो इंसान भी अलग हो सकता है. There are chances, if that person has behaved in a certain way, there could be a reason. How about I ask that person instead of assuming it? There's a very beautiful section in a book called 4 Agreements. Okay? And this book talks about 4 things. So I don't very vividly remember the rest of the things, but ये एक है उसमें जिसमें से एक agreement है, do not make assumptions. And I recommend this book to everybody because it talks about 4 things. If you start working on it,
so simple but so impactful.
So impactful because हम ना generally भी, जैसे for example मैं आपको एक simple example देती हूँ. कोई इंसान जिसे workout करना पसंद नहीं है, ठीक है, they hate working out. Suddenly उन्होंने gym की membership ले ली. अब आप, if you are a gym freak or maybe you know how gymming works, workout works, all of that, and you look at that person and says, listen, तू 3 महीने से ज़्यादा नहीं टिक पाएगी. What did you do? Instigated something in that person or instilled basically a thought in them कि chances are कि शायद मैं 3 महीने से ज़्यादा मैं नहीं टिकूंगी. But उससे ज़्यादा आपने क्या किया? आपने assumption लगाया. You never know, maybe that person is actually putting the effort. And you never know, that person might turn into a gym freak. They are working on it.
So
you
rather
don't
than
know.
contributing and helping, making
Rather
an
than
assumption
assuming,
and putting that,
or instilling that thought, just ask that how is it going and how are you planning to continue it. तो हम ना हर चीज़ों में assume करते हैं everyone has their own comfort zone. तो आप पहले पूछ लो अज्यूम करने से पहले. तो अगर आप वो लैटर पार्ट में हो जहाँ पे you are the toughest one to be in a relationship with, then ask yourself, am I having rigid mindset? कि अच्छा I want things to be in a certain way, and if the person does not behave in a certain way, I'll cut off. But you're constantly going to contemplate that person is not in the right space, and it's a cognitive bias which is called the Horns effect. The Horns effect means कि आप सामने वाले एक इंसान के नेगेटिव एट्रीब्यूट्स पे ज़्यादा फोकस करते हो कंपेयर टू द पॉजिटिव वंस. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल इफ़ यू क्रिटिकल अबाउट योर पार्टनर कि अच्छा माय पार्टनर इज़ not right in terms of behavior, हमेशा he has low frustration tolerance, गुस्से में ही रहता है, यही करता है वो करता है. तो उस इंसान ने अगर एक चीज़ अच्छी भी की तो you're going to focus a lot more on the negative attributes. That's called the Horns effect. And this is a cognitive bias. And you have to keep working on these biases a lot more.
I'm
lot
going to
more.
remember that
And
control my mind next time.
that also talks about the other cognitive bias, which is a very, very important one, which is called the fundamental attribution error, which talks about कि अगर मैंने किया तो सही, पर अगर कोई और कर रहा है तो गलत. तो आप क्या कर रहे हो पता है? अगर मैंने कोई चीज़ की, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ़ आई हैव अराइव्ड समवेयर लेट, तो व्हाट आई विल डू, इफ़ आई हैव दैट एरर इन मी, आई विल बी लाइक यार मुझे बहुत ट्रैफिक मिली, फिर ये हो गया, फिर ये हो गया, लोगों को तो समझ नहीं आता, आई विल गिव ऑल ऑफ दैट एंड ब्लेम दिस सिचुएशन. सो व्हाट डू? you overemphasize or you underestimate yourself and you overestimate the situations.
And when someone else does
But
it,
when someone else does it, कोई और लेट आया तो you're like यार कोई तरीका होता है टाइम पे आने का, ये नहीं वो नहीं, you're just justifying कि अच्छा ट्रैफिक था, ये था वो था. Then so what happens? You have different standards for yourself and for others. So these are, I'm telling you, there are tons of cognitive biases.
I'm sitting here and doing like boom, boom.
And I'm telling you, there are tons of cognitive biases we really need to be mindful about, and which is why it's very important to be mindful of your own thought patterns so that you be mindful of how do you behave with the other person.
Superb. So, Ekta, for the next segment, when we started this podcast, we really wanted to go out and question things and break the myths around whether it's hair, health, overall, right? There's so much gyan out there that one tends to find it difficult कि क्या सही है क्या नहीं. So our objective here is to bring experts like you and really break the myths.
Great. You know, there's one thing that I would really like to add. When we say health, a lot of people miscommunicate health as just physical health. It could be emotional health, physical health. It could be mental health as well. And somehow, only post-COVID, people are talking about mental health. It's like before, people were definitely going through a lot of mental health issues, relationship issues. But now we are addressing this whole elephant in the room that, oh, you know what, we need to talk about it.
Absolutely.
And it sums up your entire being.
Absolutely, absolutely. Equally important, if not more.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
So, let's go to the what the health segment.
Absolutely. Let's go.
It seems like a lot of women are attracted to bad boys.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is because of their childhood trauma and seeing their father as the dominant figure in their family?
Yes, your childhood trauma does impact you. When I say childhood trauma, it doesn't always have to be trauma. It has to be what kind of conditioning you've seen out there. So I see a lot of people using this that, oh, you know, females only want to fall for bad guys. It's not always true. What happens is, when I come from a space where I have to, as a kid, if I had to do too much to get my father's attention, I learned that I have to keep doing it for everyone. Now, for bad guys, they're easy to get. For right guys, because they're so calculative in nature and behavior, that they take time to sort of reciprocate to you. And which is why a lot of people say that, oh, she just wanted to fall for a bad guy, and this is what happened. So I think it's a myth. It completely depends on how you've been conditioned and aware are you about what you want?
Okay. Love at first sight.
That's a myth. That's a myth. And I really want to say, what the hell? Like, really? Because it's a myth. There's no such thing as love at first sight, because you will fall for somebody. Like, you will like someone, but that's going to be on the basis of appearance, and maybe you just went out for dinner, say like you went for a date. But do you fall for it? No. You have to decide, and that depends on your next dates, that whether that person is right for you or no. So there's no such thing as love at first sight. It's always attraction at first sight, and love happens over the period. It happens over a course of time.
Fair enough. Online dating is only for desperate people.
That's such a myth. That is not true. I think for a lot of people, it's not for desperate people. It's for those who want to explore possibilities. It's also for someone, um, who are not out there, who are introvert, and they are in that their whole zone where they can meet more people, but being in their comfort. So I can be at my space, my comfort, and yet go through a lot of options that match me or who are aligned with me.
Great. And the last one, opposites attract might be true for magnets, but not really for people.
That's not true. I see a lot of people who are so aligned with each other, and they get attracted. And in true sense, supposedly if I like to live life in a certain way, so do you. I'm going to be attracted to you, right? I think it's just a myth where people say that opposites attract. No. I mean,
And
to be
thanks
honest,
to DDLJ too.
yes, opposites collide, I would say. That has to be the new so-called saga out there. Opposites do, not always. It's like it completely depends upon, even if you're two complete opposites, how do you work with the differences? And there's a very beautiful way I would like to sum up that: find someone who can fill those gaps between your fingers in a beautiful way, where you don't feel it's like an extra effort that you have to do to fit in.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ekta.
Great, thank you.
So, Ekta, for the next segment, we have some questions that we got from people. I'm going to just read out the questions and then you can answer. Initially, me and my partner looked good, but now in our late 30s, we are not fit and attractive like earlier. I have gained weight and my husband has lost hair. I am not attracted to him anymore, and I'm way more worried that even he's not attracted to me.
I think we see this issue in most of them. So I would suggest, for most important thing is, what you see right now is something, just like we spoke a while back, that what you're focusing upon is a very subjective attribute, which means something that might get better or worse, right? When we talk about appearances, it changes time to time. It doesn't stay still, right? It's not something which is stagnant. So we have to make sure that if you're not attracted to your partner, then check, is it just the appearance, or you're losing out on the spice of a relationship? Because sometimes, even if my partner does not look very attractive, but we have fun time together, we do different things,
Novel
we spend
things.
great novel things, we have great time, we spend enough time with each other, we have great intimacy as well. So when you focus on these attributes, where you work on the foundations, वो चीज़ें आप जो ट्रेड पे फोकस करना चाहिए, आप अपीयरेंस पे फोकस करना ज़्यादा शुरू कर देते हो. But let's just deep dive and see what are the positive aspects that you would want to build with each other, that what are the things you used to do earlier that you can do it now, which can enhance it.
Fair enough. Next question. What is the worst mistake to make in a relationship? I've had extramarital affair but ended it. How to communicate to my partner without losing her?
Okay. So, first of all, if you know that there is something, usually whenever there's something lacking in a relationship, we try to find that outside. Okay. When I've lost that spark or that zeal to be with each other, that's when someone clicks me outside the relationship, I become more inclined towards that person. So if you think that you've been inclined towards that person, you had an extramarital affair, now that it's over, if you think that your partner is able to handle it, will be able to understand why you did and what you did. And if you're willing to communicate that with your partner and your partner is empathetic enough to understand, then communicate. If you think that this might bring more harm than good, then bury it, but also make sure that you're focusing a lot more on your relationship than committing that mistake all over again. So work on what's lacking.
I don't know why this relationship coach didn't exist before. Like, I think
I
a
think
lot
they
of
did.
people
It's
out
just
there,
that
you need to go and meet Ekta. How to get rid of my ex since he's constantly texting, calling, and understood his mistake. What should I do? Should I allow him back in my life? I'm worried that he will break my heart again.
It's a-
Breakups and exes coming back
yes.
is like,
So usually it's said, it's a beautiful quote that says, "What breaks you will never repair you," and that's a fact. Sometimes it doesn't always apply, but sometimes what happens is maybe you've broken up for some trivial reason. Sometimes people do, and today's teenagers, they do break up for something which is so petty and trivial in nature. So what happens, it's imperative that you speak it out, work together, then speak about your non-negotiables like we spoke about. Then these are the things that bothered me, these are the things we need to work upon. It's no, and not being self-centric. Maybe you both broke up, so understand your partner's perspective also कि अच्छा ठीक है, उनका भी सुन लो कि if you both want to come together, if he's understood his mistake, if he's willing to work together on something, तो दोनों बैठ करके चीज़ों को अलाइन कर दो कि अच्छा हम जो जो पहले, जैसे कहते हैं ना हम सीक्वल्स होते हैं, तो अगर पहले पार्ट में चीज़ें सही नहीं चली तो क्या नहीं चली, तो उस पर हम कैसे काम कर सकते हैं. एंड इफ दिस हैज़ हैपेंड ऑफन टाइम्स, जैसे बहुत बार ब्रेकअप भी हुआ है, बहुत बार पैचअप भी
I
हुआ है,
know.
और ये बहुत बार हुआ है, तो देन यू
Pattern.
इट्स टाइम फॉर यू टू रिकॉग्नाइज द पैटर्न दैट all that person is doing is love bombing you right now. Because see, I'm telling you, this is very subjective reason, क्योंकि आपको जब तक आप communicate नहीं करोगे तब तक आपको पता नहीं चलेगा what is the real reason behind why the person has come back.
How do I get out of a toxic relationship?
By recognizing it, working on your self-worth, by knowing that I don't deserve this, I deserve something better. Toxic relationship simply means कि जहाँ पे आपकी जो bare minimum चीज़ें होती है वो भी नहीं है, फिर आपको वैल्यू नहीं किया जा रहा है. हाउ डू यू हैंडल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स? दिस इज सो अंडरवैल्यूड, क्योंकि बहुत बार आप कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स के साथ कैसे डील करते हो वो भी बहुत मैटर करता है. तो ये सारी चीज़ें अगर नहीं हैं, दिस इज हाउ यू रिकॉग्नाइज. सो रिकॉग्नाइज दैट and overcome by working on yourself, by focusing on things that bring you value and love. That's how you get into it.
I'm 26-year-old, introvert. I have a hair loss issue. I have a bald patch at a young age. I feel underconfident all the time. How to overcome my negative thoughts and feel confident while talking to girls?
And I think this question should go to you. Then you, I think, please go ahead
Be
and
regular.
try. Then be regular with the treatment.
Don't.
You can always reach out to Saloni
Absolutely.
through the group, and you can
Absolutely.
get personal attention.
Absolutely.
But talking about self-confidence, I think we don't understand, but your appearance does matter a lot. And I would really like to share a personal story here that, during my 20s, there was this phase where in fact, when I was a teenager, early adulthood, I didn't experience even one single acne. But there's something called adult acne that I did experience, which was few years back. For 3 years, it haunted me. It put down my self-confidence. Because for someone who never had even one single acne, and suddenly I would see my entire face being filled by acne, it was too much for me to also handle. And it took me a lot of work, lot of self-work. Of course, trying treatments that are important, being regular with it, being consistent. So please go try Traya, and you have to be consistent with your treatments. But more than that, I think it did affect my self-confidence at that point of time. Later to realize that if I'm
It's
not
all
mentally here, then I'm not going to be mentally right here as well. Started accepting it. I started understanding that why and what is causing this.
The last one. I have a crush on a girl who is way out of my league. How do I confront my feelings to this person?
A lot of times people think that he or she is out of my league when because of the appearance, sometimes because I get a lot of DMs saying that, listen, I look so average and this girl that I like, she is gorgeous and this and that, she's like a princess and I think मुझसे तो नहीं पटेगी, मुझसे तो होगा ही नहीं, and then they start self-downing themselves and there's a lot of self-sabotage that takes place. It's important to understand that आपकी वैल्यू आपके बिहेवियर से है,
और आप
आपके
खुद
थॉट
define
पैटर्न
कर
से
रहे
है,
हो।
आपके ट्रेड से है कि आपकी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स क्या है, आप कैसे कैरेक्टर वाले इंसान हो. ट्राई एंड फिगर आउट दैट व्हाट डज दिस पर्सन लाइक. ओके, ट्राई एंड फिगर आउट दैट what does she value most. Does she value fun, jokes, humor? What does she value? Work on that. And then of course you can always be aligned. तो आपकी out of league जैसे कोई चीज़ ही नहीं होती. You can always work on it. Also ask that partner whether she or he is looking for a relationship. Sometimes हम उस चीज़ों पे काम तो कर लेते हैं, but what if the other person is not looking for a relationship? तो आप क्या फिर आप बोलोगे कि अच्छा हमको तो सजेस्ट किया गया था ट्रेड्स पे काम करो, but the person, I'm still where I am. So ask yourself and communicate with that person, what are they looking for?
Fair enough. Awesome, Ekta. I'm going to now bring a game
Wow.
that we have designed for you. I'm going to read.
Now I'm excited.
Yes. I'm going to read. This is called the red flag and the green flag round. I'm going to read sentences and we need your help to identify what's red and what's green. Okay? दो जिस्म एक जान, they don't have a life outside of you.
It's such a red flag. Oh my god. I can't tell you, this is so overrated. क्योंकि रिलेशनशिप के बाहर भी बहुत सारी चीजें होती है. So it's such a red flag.
Okay. Too clingy. They are Natasha from Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara.
Red flag, of course, because I think that comes from a space of being anxious attachment. So there's an attachment theory that says कि हम ना बहुत differently attached होते हैं हमारे relationships में. तो someone like Natasha is someone who's too anxiously attached in a relationship जहाँ पे a lot of my life revolves around that relationship. So I become too clingy because I derive joy, I derive my self-worth through that relationship. So that's a red flag.
Makes complete sense. आपके likes और dislikes अलग हैं.
Yes, that's a green flag. Absolutely green flag, because you come from a different background and I think it's important to value different value systems.
They will hear you out before pointing out your mistakes.
Yes, I think this kind of, do we have orange flag in that case? Because
Hold
that
both.
says, yeah, both. So basically, I think they'll hear you out before pointing out mistake. Pointing out mistake is not the way. It's like communicating it. It's like they'll hear you out, and it's important after hearing your partner out, उनको constructive feedback दो कि अच्छा, you know,
Now
this is how it
I'm your disciple, right? So constructive feedback, communicate, right tonality and right words.
Absolutely. I love that, how you grasp it.
I'm a good student. They are your gossip partners, spilling the tea.
I think that's both. It's not always about the gossip, it's about communicating, because gossip can be thoda sa manipulative because you like that manipulation kind of thing that you know about. It's your own trait I'm talking about. Relationship में red flag नहीं है, it's like you communicating. But when you talk about gossip, it's such a, I think it's such a negative word because it gives you an idea that, oh, you know something that you shouldn't have known. So I think it's both. It's kind of.
I think the intention and whether it's negative or casual. They are possessive and overprotective like Kabir Singh. I'm so glad. How did I miss out Kabir Singh out of everyone? Right? We could do another
episode altogether on Kabir Singh. Oh, there's so much to talk on that. But it's such a red flag. Such a red flag. Entire Kabir Singh is red flag. And I wonder how people really like rewatching that movie. One of the reasons why people like rewatching that movie because they resonate with that. Yeah, acha, you know what? I wanted that person and nahi mili and this and that. But it's such a red flag too.
My only problem with that movie is now that I have a chance to talk about it, is the ending, right? I wish they would have shown Kabir Singh going to an Ekta or a psychiatrist or a therapist to solve these problems. Suddenly he gets his Preeti and he's fine.
Yeah.
They're not showing what happened after life.
After
Maybe he'll be
that.
abusive to Preeti.
Absolutely. And 100% he will be because what happens once you get. See, your core traits are something which needs to be worked upon. Either you do it through self awareness or through somebody else who's going to make you aware of those traits. You definitely need a coach for it.
Exactly.
You can't do it by yourself. So it's like that. Unless and until you listen to these kind of podcasts.
Initially, you support them, but after success, you get insecure and jealous in a wrong way.
That's a red flag, of course, because I think it's important to value each other. It's important to value that there are going to be differences, despite of having success or no. You know that you both value each other, and there's no such thing as wanting to have that upper hand. I think what a lot of people do is, and they go wrong, is wanting to have an upper hand.
And here's my closing question. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I think for me, one of the best things that I've always been someone who's too self-aware of what happens. Of course, because I come from a space of mental health and psychology. But sometimes, you know, what happens, despite of knowing certain drawbacks, you don't work on it. So it's important to work on that. So I think my younger self, I would just give that advice that, you know, when you know there's a drawback, okay, work on it. Instead of waiting for things to turn sour. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Ekta. I had a blast chatting with you.
I had amazing time. We have like more episodes coming.
Yeah, and I hope that people watching this work on their relationships, feel healthier and happier in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm looking forward to a lot more of fun, knowledge, and different areas of knowledge on Traya podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope this podcast helps you improve relationships in your life. By the way, we have more such amazing podcasts coming up on this channel. So don't forget to subscribe Traya Health.